Hi, everyone. For this week's discussion, I'm going to be talking about option number one, those first set of questions about defining the client's lifestyle. So, in the video, we saw Dr. Carlson talking to his client, Gina, about, how she describes herself, a little bit about her background. He asked her some stuff about her family. And so the first question says, why would Dr. Carlson tie Gina's motivation back to her parents? Um, in our book, it mentions that the family is the individual's first society and that parents are models for beliefs and values. And so I think that he's asking her about her parents because he's trying to get a sense of um, maybe what her core beliefs are. Do they align with her parents? Um, Adler believes, I believe that this is Adlerian theory used in this counseling session for very different reasons. And I think one of them is because, Adler talks about how our personalities are formed by when we're age 5. And so our childhood impacts a lot of who we are. And so I think by him asking her about her parents and, her background, he's trying to get a sense of what motivates her in life and, what are her beliefs. And so the second question said, what basic life tasks does Gina describe in this footage? So Gina talks about, love, community, and work. And so, in the terms of love, she talks about her divorce and how, um, you know, he asked her first, like how she describes himself, and she describes herself as positive, outgoing, determined. Um, and so he kind of probed her a little more as to what exactly does she mean by determined. Uh, and so that's when they kind of segue into the life task that she's describing. She talks about how happiness for her is raising her kids to be good people despite coming from a divorced household. Um, she also speaks about work in terms of that she is a teacher. She loves what she does and she couldn't see herself doing anything else. Um, and then back to terms of love, she does talk about how um, in the present time, she doesn't foresee another marriage, but she does see some type of committed relationship in her future. Uh, and then, as far as what interventions on the part of the therapist suggest to you that this is an Adlerian therapist, there were several things that Dr. Carlson did that made me believe that this was an Adlerian therapist. For example, they start up on a face-to-face kind of cooperative setting. And so that models kind of that egalitarian relationship between the therapist and the client. Um, I think, he's trying to keep away from those feelings of superiority. Um, and so then being face to face with each other, I think is super helpful in that. Um, I think he another intervention that he does is that he does use active listening. I saw him taking notes quite a bit while he was in the session with Gina, and he, would kind of repeat back to her like, "Oh, so what I'm hearing," or he would, look at his notes and from there decide like what kind of questions to probe further. Like when she said that she described herself as determined, and then, she said, like, I just know where I don't know where I'm headed. Like, I just know I'm headed somewhere. And he was like, well, that's kind of vague. Can you give me some more information? Like, what does that determination look like? Determined in terms of what? Like, you know, love life, work, family. Um, so I thought that him using active listening, and then he also used a lot of probing questions to get to know the client's lifestyle, like when he's asking her about, her family, um, when he's asking her about raising her kids, like what does happiness look like to her? Um, and also when he is, sorry, I lost my train of thought on my notes. Um, when he talks about her in terms of like finding a new relationship, he's asking her all these like probing questions to get to know what her lifestyle is like. Uh, and I also think that something else that stood out to me as part of being the Adlerian therapist is that he listens in a very non-judgmental way. Uh, he's very positive and warm, and when he talks to her, it doesn't come off as confrontational. Um, the way that he frames his questions is also very non-judgmental. They're kind of framed in a way of trying to get her to say more about her background, her motivations, and things like that. Uh, so I think that overall, this is a good example of an Adlerian theory, or the therapist using Adlerian theory to kind of guide his counseling sessions. Um, I think also part of it is he's just like trying to get to know her. So this might have been like an initial session or one of the earlier ones. Uh, and so I think by him, using listening in a non-judgmental tone, using active listening, um, being face to face with her, like being cooperative and all of that, were all interventions that support, or that made me think that he was using Adlerian theory during his counseling session. So that's all I have to share, and I can't wait to respond to everybody else's posts. Thanks.